Story 1, The Weight That Doesn't Exist. The scale said 87,000 pounds, but my manifest showed 42,000, and when I climbed into the trailer to check, there was nothing there but empty darkness and the sound of something breathing in rhythm with my heartbeat. I'd pulled into the weigh station on I-77 just south of Wytheville at 2:47 in the morning, March 19th, 2024, hauling what should have been industrial plastics from Charlotte to Cleveland. My name is Robert Hayes, 41 years old, 19 years behind the wheel, 360,000 miles without a single accident or violation. The kind of driver dispatchers fight over, the kind who doesn't call in with excuses or ghost stories. But that night, standing in the harsh fluorescent glare of the weigh station, watching the digital numbers climb higher with each passing second even though my truck hadn't moved, I felt my carefully constructed reality start to crack. The weighmaster was a woman named Dolores, maybe 60, with reading glasses on a beaded chain and the permanent scowl of someone who'd seen every trick in the book. She tapped her screen, frowned, tapped it again. "Step out of the vehicle, please. We're going to need to do a manual inspection." "There's been a mistake," I said, my voice steady despite the ice forming in my stomach. "I'm hauling plastic pellets, 21 pallets. Manifest says 42,000 pounds total weight. Your scale must be off." She didn't look up. Scale was calibrated this morning, reading 87,212 pounds, now 87,306, while you're standing here arguing with me. Her eyes met mine, and something in them made my skin crawl. "It's gaining weight, Mr. Hayes." As I walked back to the trailer with a flashlight that felt too light in my hand, like gravity had forgotten how to work properly. The padlock was still sealed. My seal, the one I'd watched them attach in Charlotte 9 hours ago. But when I touched it, the metal was cold enough to burn, and I could feel a pulse running through it. Thump thump, matching my heart. The lock opened with a click that sounded too loud, too final. The doors swung outward on hinges that shouldn't have moved that smoothly, and I pointed my flashlight into the trailer's interior. 21 pallets, wrapped in plastic, exactly as they should be. But the shadows between them were wrong, darker than shadows should be, and they moved when my light touched them, sliding away like oil on water. "Everything looks fine," I called back to Dolores, but my voice cracked on the last word because the pallets were changing. Not visibly. Not anything I could point to and say that's wrong, but they were heavier, I could feel it. The trailer was settling lower on its suspension, the tires spreading wider against the concrete, and there was a smell now, copper and rot and something else. Something that reminded me of the funeral home where we'd held my father's wake. I climbed up into the trailer, stupid. Every horror movie instinct screaming at me not to, but I'm a professional, 19 years, 360,000 miles. I dealt with shifted loads and damaged freight and frozen reefer units in July. This was just another problem to solve. The first pallet felt normal under my hand, plastic pellets in industrial bags exactly as described. The second pallet felt normal. The third pallet felt normal. The fourth pallet didn't feel like anything at all because my hand went through it, through the plastic wrap and the bags, and into something wet and warm that grabbed my fingers and pulled. I jerked back, falling, my flashlight spinning away, and in that moment of tumbling darkness I saw them, between the pallets. In the spaces that should have been 2 feet wide but stretched back into forever. Faces, dozens of them, hundreds, pressed against some invisible membrane, mouths open in silent screams, hands reaching, and they all looked like me. Different ages, different stages of decay, but all unmistakably Robert Hayes. All trapped in that impossible space between what was and what the scale said should be. The flashlight hit the floor and the beam caught one face directly. It was me at 60, 70 maybe, skin hanging loose, eyes filmed with cataracts but conscious, aware, mouthing words I could almost understand. "Don't weigh it," he was saying. "Don't ever weigh it. The weight is how it counts you." I scrambled backward, hit the door frame, fell the 4 feet to the concrete, and lay there gasping while the sky above me swirled with stars that were too bright and too close. Dolores was standing over me, her face expressionless. "93,000 pounds now," she said calmly, consulting her tablet. "Gaining approximately 140 pounds per minute. That's about the weight of an adult human male would." "Meant you say, Mr. Hayes." "Well, what the hell is in there?" I managed to gasp. "It's every version of you that didn't make it," she said, and her voice had changed, become layered, like multiple people speaking in unison. "Every truck stop you didn't stop at, every exit you didn't take, every choice that killed you. They all go in the trailer, Mr. Hayes. They all add to the weight. And when the weight gets heavy enough, the trailer tips over into their reality, and you join them, and a new Robert Hayes gets to drive away carrying one more ghost." I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work properly. The concrete beneath me was vibrating now, a deep subsonic rumble that I felt in my teeth and bones. The trailer was settling lower, the tires starting to bulge, and through the open doors I could see the pallets rearranging themselves, making room for something new. "How do I stop it?" I asked. Dolores smiled, and her teeth were too numerous, too sharp. "You can't stop it. It's already happened in 73 different realities where you made different choices tonight. In one, you took exit 41 for coffee and a drunk driver T-boned you. In another, you stopped to help a stranded motorist and they stabbed you 17 times. In another, you had an aneurysm at 219 and crashed into a bridge abutment. All those Robert Hayes are in your trailer now, and the scale knows." The scale always knows. The weight station was changing around me. The lights were multiplying, creating overlapping shadows that didn't match any possible light source. The concrete was developing cracks that formed letters, words, sentences in languages I'd never seen but somehow understood. They all said the same thing. "This is the reality where you learn the truth, and learning the truth is its own kind of death." I forced myself to my feet. The truck was listing now, the trailer pulling downward on the fifth wheel, the whole rig starting to tilt at an angle that defied physics. I could hear Dolores behind me, or multiple Doloreses, their voices overlapping. 98,000 pounds, 103,000, 109,000. How heavy is a life, Mr. Hayes? How many alternate deaths does it take to crush the one who survived? I climbed into the cab. The ignition was already on. Had I left it on? I couldn't remember. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel, and when I looked in the side mirror, I could see them spilling out of the trailer now, all those dead Robert Hayes, crawling over each other, reaching toward the cab, their mouths forming my name in silent unison. The truck lurched forward. I hadn't touched the accelerator. It was moving on its own, or being pulled, dragged by the weight of all those impossible deaths. The scale beneath me registered 147,000 pounds, 196,000, 212,000, the numbers climbing so fast they blurred. As exit 41 appeared in my headlights, I should have taken it for coffee. Would have taken it if dispatch hadn't called at 1:53 to tell me the delivery time had been moved up. In that reality, the drunk driver was waiting. I could see him now, a shimmer in the air where that choice had existed, a ghost of a collision that had killed another me. The truck wouldn't let me take the exit. It stayed on I-77, following some route that existed across all the realities where I'd survived. Mile marker after mile marker, each one representing a death avoided, a disaster sidestepped, a version of myself that hadn't been lucky enough to make it to morning. My CB radio crackled to life. My own voice came through distorted, desperate. This is Robert Hayes, northbound on I-77, requesting assistance. There's something in my trailer. There's something in my trailer and it knows my name and it keeps getting heavier and I can't stop, and if you're hearing this, if you're me, don't weigh the load. Whatever you do, don't let them weigh the load because that's how it counts you. That's how it knows how many times you should have died. So I grabbed the radio. I'm here, I'm Robert Hayes, I'm listening. Static, then another voice, older, rougher. I know you are, I was you, 30 years ago, same route, same way station. The weight never stops growing. Every close call, every near miss, every moment you should have died but didn't, it all goes in the trailer. You're carrying the weight of your own survival and eventually it's too heavy. Eventually you tip. How do I get out? I screamed into the radio. Silence, then a different voice, younger, terrified. You don't. There is no out. There's only the moment when you realize you're not the driver anymore, you're the cargo. The speedometer was climbing. 85, 90, 95. I wasn't touching the accelerator. The truck was accelerating on its own, pulled forward by some momentum I couldn't see or understand. The trailer was swaying now, rocking side to side. The weight inside shifting, redistributing, and I could hear them in there. All those dead versions of myself, screaming in voices that only I could hear. Mile marker 247. I'd been here before, would be here again. The road ahead split into infinite variations, each one showing a different outcome, a different disaster. In one, I swerved to avoid a deer and rolled the truck. In another, the fifth wheel failed and the trailer broke loose. In another, I simply disappeared, the truck found empty the next morning, still idling in the middle of the highway. The trailer doors open and nothing inside but those 21 pallets of plastic pellets that weighed exactly 42,000 pounds. This is the reality where I wrote this down, where I kept driving north toward Cleveland as the sun rose and the weight gradually stabilized at 347,000 pounds, where I delivered the load on time and the receiving dock didn't weigh it, and I unloaded 21 pallets that looked exactly as they should. But I can still feel them in there. When the trailer's empty, when I'm hauling a new load, when I'm sitting in my truck at a rest stop trying to sleep, I can feel the weight of all those dead versions of myself packed into the spaces between realities, waiting for the next way station, the next scale, the next time someone tries to measure exactly how heavy a life can be. The scale always knows, and the weight never stops growing. A story 2, the dispatch that never ends. The message came through at 11:47 p.m. Pick up at Asheville, delivered to Asheville, see dispatch for details. I read it 3 times before the migraine started, before I realized I was already in Asheville, already at the pickup location, and the address I was supposed to deliver to was the exact warehouse I was currently parked behind. The same building, the same loading dock, the same flickering security light that made everything look like an old film strip. Patricia Sullivan, 36, 8 years driving. I specialized in pharmaceutical runs, the kind that required temperature logs and security protocols and signature verification at every stop. Clean record, perfect on-time percentage. The kind of driver who triple-checks everything because one mistake could mean 6 figures in lost product and a terminated contract. But sitting in that parking lot, reading that impossible dispatch, I felt something crack in my carefully organized world. I called dispatch, 5 rings, 10, 15, then a click and a voice I almost recognized. Sullivan, you have your instructions. The pickup and delivery are the same location, I said slowly, clearly, the way you'd explain something to a child. That doesn't make sense. Does it have to make sense? The voice asked, and I realized it wasn't just similar to mine, it was mine. My voice on the other end of the line with a flatness that made my skin crawl. Pick up the cargo, deliver the cargo, that's the job. The line went dead. The migraine intensified, a spike of pain behind my right eye that made the world shimmer. I sat there for 17 minutes according to the timestamp on my dash cam, though it felt like both seconds and hours, before the loading dock door rolled open with a grinding screech that set my teeth on edge. The pallet jack emerged from the darkness inside, rolling on its own, carrying a single crate approximately 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. Perfect cube, perfect dimensions. Wrapped in plastic that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The jack rolled directly to my trailer, somehow navigated the space between the dock and the bed, and positioned itself perfectly for loading. As I got out of the cab, every instinct screaming at me to get back in and drive away. But 8 years of professionalism overrode survival instinct. I had a job to do. I had a perfect record to maintain. I approached the crate with my digital scanner ready to log the pickup. There was no barcode, no shipping label, no markings of any kind, just that light-absorbing black plastic and a weight that made the pallet jack's wheels strain. I walked around it looking for any identifying information and realized I could see my reflection in the plastic. Not quite my reflection, something close. Patricia Sullivan, but older, thinner, with eyes that had seen things I couldn't imagine. The reflection's mouth moved. "Don't open it," she said, though I heard it inside my head rather than through my ears. "Just drive." My scanner beeped. Somehow, impossibly, it had logged the crate, pharmaceutical supplies, destination, the same warehouse I was currently standing behind. Deliver by midnight, I checked my watch. 11:59. The rational part of my brain knew this was wrong. Knew I should refuse the load, call my supervisor, document everything, and walk away. But I'd already loaded it. Or had I was Stan's. Ding by the trailer, and the crate was inside, and I couldn't remember moving it. Couldn't remember the sound of the hydraulic lift gate or the physical effort of securing it. As I closed the trailer doors, the sound echoed wrong like it was happening in multiple locations simultaneously, got back in the cab, put the truck in gear, and that's when I realized I couldn't leave the parking lot. Not physically couldn't, the truck moved fine, responded to every input. But every exit I took looped back to the same spot. I'd pull onto the street, drive 3 blocks, turn a corner, and find myself approaching the warehouse from a different direction. Take the highway entrance, accelerate to 55, watch the mile markers count up, take an exit, and emerge back into the same parking lot, the same flickering security light, the same loading dock door now closed. Midnight came and went. 12:01, 12:02, 12:17, each minute marked by a new dispatch message. Delivery overdue, proceed to destination immediately. The same message, over and over, variations on the same theme. Sullivan, complete delivery. Sullivan, you are now 43 minutes late. Sullivan, why are you still at pickup location? But I wasn't at the pickup location. I was everywhere. I was driving through residential streets I'd never seen before, past houses with darkened windows and cars in driveways that looked normal except for their colors, which were all wrong, all shifted toward ultraviolet or infrared, colors that shouldn't exist but did. I was on the highway, trapped in a segment of I-40 that repeated endlessly, the same exit signs, the same overpass, the same roadkill deer that I passed every 90 seconds. As my phone rang, I answered without looking at the screen. Hello. You're not delivering it fast enough, my voice said from the speaker. The cargo is time-sensitive. I'm trying, I said, and heard the desperation in my voice, the edge of panic I'd never allowed myself to feel in 8 years behind the wheel. I keep ending up back at the warehouse. The roads don't go anywhere else. They go exactly where they've always gone, my other voice said patiently. You're the one who's changed. You're driving through all the routes you didn't take, all the detours you avoided, all the decisions that led to this moment. The cargo doesn't exist in linear time, Patricia, neither do you anymore. I looked in my rearview mirror at the trailer behind me, that innocent white rectangle that had carried thousands of loads across hundreds of thousands of miles. Through the rear window, I could see the outline of the crate, darker than the darkness around it, and it was pulsing, expanding and contracting in rhythm with my heartbeat, like it was breathing, like it was alive. 1:47 a.m. 2:11, 3:33. Time was moving wrong, skipping forward in irregular jumps, and with each jump I felt something slip away. First, it was my memory of breakfast yesterday, then my memory of how I'd learned to drive a truck, then my memory of my sister's wedding last June. Pieces of myself erasing while I drove in circles through a version of Asheville that existed in all times simultaneously. I saw my apartment building pass by 7 times, but each time I was living in a different unit, or it was a different year, or the building had different siding and different tenants and a different name. I saw the coffee shop where I stopped every morning, but it was a dry cleaner, but it was a vacant lot, but it was an apartment complex, all occupying the same space, all existing at once. The dispatch messages continued. Hundreds of them, thousands, they filled my phone's memory and kept coming. Sullivan, deliver cargo. But each message was slightly different now, coming from alternate versions of dispatch giving contradictory instructions. Deliver to warehouse, deliver to hospital, deliver to residential address, deliver to coordinates that don't exist, deliver to yourself. That last one made me look at the delivery address again. It had changed, or I was finally seeing it correctly. Patricia Sullivan, my name, followed by the address of the apartment building I'd passed those 7 times, the one that existed in all those different configurations. I drove there, or I was already there. The distinction stopped meaning anything around 4 a.m. when the sun came up from the wrong direction and the sky was a color that made my eyes water. Parked in front of Building C, Unit 247, which was my apartment, had been my apartment, would be my apartment in 5 different timelines. The crate was on the ground next to the trailer. I hadn't unloaded it. It had simply appeared waiting, that perfect 4x4x4 cube of condensed wrongness. I had a signature scanner in my hand. The screen showed a name, Patricia Sullivan. It showed a time, the exact moment I'd received that first dispatch message. It showed an instruction. The Dion opened the crate. A professional, 8 years, perfect record. I'd never failed to complete a delivery. I scanned the signature, my own signature that I couldn't remember writing, and the crate's plastic wrapping peeled away like dead skin, curling back to reveal what was inside. It was me, was us. Was every Patricia Sullivan who'd ever driven this route, made these choices, taken these loads. Dozens of versions of myself packed into an impossible space, layered over and under and through each other like a human palimpsest. Some were older, some were younger, some were rotting, some were screaming, some were sleeping, all were aware. One of them looked directly at me, our eyes meeting across the space that separated driver from cargo. Her mouth moved. Your turn inside, your turn to be delivered. I felt the shift then, the moment when I stopped being the driver and became the delivery. The parking lot tilted, reality folding like origami, and I was falling toward the crate, toward all those other versions of myself, while somewhere behind me a new Patricia Sullivan climbed into my truck, checked her dispatch, and started the engine. And she'll drive in circles too. Pick up the cargo, try to deliver the cargo, get the messages, loop through the streets that go everywhere and nowhere. Eventually end up here at this same apartment building with this same crate with me inside it pressed against all the others waiting to welcome her home. I can still feel the phone vibrating in my pocket, dispatch messages coming through one after another forever. Sullivan, pick up at Asheville, deliver to Asheville. The job that never ends. The route that eats its own tail. The delivery where the cargo and the driver and the destination are all the same thing. I've been driving for 8 years, or 8 minutes, or 8 seconds. Time doesn't work the same inside the crate. I can see through the eyes of all the Patricia Sullivans who came before me, see their roots, their loads, their moments of realization when they understood the truth. We're all still driving. We're all still trying to complete the delivery. We're all trapped in that moment between pickup and drop-off, stretched across every possible route simultaneously. The newest message just came through. Sullivan, you have a new pickup. Asheville, deliver to Asheville, see dispatch for details. And somewhere in a parking lot that exists in all times and no times, another version of me is reading that message for the first time, feeling that first spike of migraine, starting a journey that ended before it began. Story 3, The Road That Remembers. The asphalt was bleeding memories I'd never lived, leaking experiences that belonged to drivers who died on this stretch of Route 119 through the West Virginia hills. And when my tires crossed into the wet patches, I remembered their deaths as if they were my own. Felt the steering wheel snap left as a blown tire sent Jackson Chen into the guardrail in 1973. Tasted the copper of Thomas Reed's blood as his head went through the windshield in 2006. It experienced the slow, drowning suffocation of Maria Gonzalez when her truck went into Coal River at 3 a.m. in 2014. Marcus Chen, no relation to Jackson, though I felt him die like we shared blood. 38 years old, 12 years driving. I specialized in hazmat loads, the kind that required special licensing and dot inspections and placards that meant other drivers gave me extra space on the highway. But that night, hauling industrial solvents from Beckley to Charleston, I stopped being Marcus Chen and started being every driver who'd ever died on this road. The first memory hit at mile marker 34. Just a flash, barely a second, hands gripping a wheel, knuckles white, the terrible understanding that the brakes weren't working, the guardrail approaching too fast. Not my memory, not my hands. But I felt the fear, the desperate pumping of the brake pedal, the moment of impact that shattered ribs and collapsed lungs. Then it was gone and I was myself again, sweating, heart hammering, the truck drifting toward the shoulder. I corrected, breathed, checked my mirrors. Everything was normal. Route 119 stretched ahead in the darkness, winding through the mountains empty of traffic. 1:47 a.m. on October 8, 2023. Cool night. Clear sky. No mechanical issues. No reason for what had just happened except exhaustion or stress or the beginning of something neurological that I didn't want to think about. Mile marker 36. The second memory was longer. A woman's perspective this time, smaller hands on the wheel, a different truck, older, the cab filled with the smell of diesel and old cigarettes. Driving in daylight, summer 1998 according to the calendar hanging from the rearview mirror. A deer jumped from the tree line. She swerved. The truck jackknifed. The trailer swung around, impossibly heavy, impossibly fast. And there was a moment of weightlessness before the cab rolled, before the windshield imploded, before something sharp and metallic penetrated her chest with a sensation like ice and fire combined. I gasped, came back to myself, and found my truck stopped sideways across both lanes, engine still running, my chest aching in the exact spot where that piece of metal had pierced her. No wound, no blood, just phantom pain and the knowledge of how Sheila Morrison had died on this exact curve in the road 25 years ago. I should have turned around, should have called dispatch, reported a medical emergency, taken the next exit and driven straight to a hospital. But the road was pulling me forward now. I could feel it. The asphalt had a gravity of its own, a hunger, and it wanted me to experience everything it had collected, every death it had witnessed, every moment of terror it had absorbed over decades of crashes and collisions and mechanical failures. Mile marker 38. A man named David Kim who fell asleep at 2:20 in the morning in April of 2019 drifted into oncoming traffic. Woke up just in time to see the headlights, to feel the impact that crushed his chest cavity, to spend 17 seconds dying in the twisted wreckage while his CB radio squawked with voices asking if he was okay, if anyone could hear him, if he needed help. Mile marker 40. A teenager named Jake Stevens who stole his father's pickup truck in 1986 took this curve too fast, went through the guardrail down the embankment, hit a tree at 63 miles per hour. The impact was instant and final, but I felt the afterward too, the 3 days his body lay there undiscovered, the gradual shutdown of systems, the last flicker of consciousness wondering why no one had come looking. Mile marker 42, mile marker 45, mile marker 48. Each one brought new deaths, new memories, new ways to die on this stretch of road that had claimed 37 lives in the past 51 years. I lived them all, felt them all, became them all for the seconds or minutes of their dying. The truck was driving itself now. Or I was driving it with 37 sets of hands, 37 sets of muscle memory, 37 different styles and techniques and habits. I felt my foot on the accelerator, but also felt how Jackson Chen had driven with his left foot hovering over the brake, how Maria Gonzalez had gripped the wheel at 10 and 2, how Thomas Reed had slouched low in his seat with one hand on the wheel and the other on the gear shift. My reflection in the rearview mirror was shifting. Sometimes it was my face. Sometimes it was theirs. Sometimes it was all of us at once, overlapping 38 drivers occupying the same space, the same moment, the same doomed journey down Route 119 through the West Virginia hills. The road itself was changing. The asphalt was darker in patches, wet-looking despite the dry weather, and those wet patches were spreading. Where the darkness touched the white line, the paint dissolved. Where it touched the guardrail, the metal corroded. And where my tires crossed into it, I stopped being Marcus Chen entirely and became the road's memory made flesh. I saw the accidents happen in real time, not as memory but as present tense experience. Jackson Chen's truck appeared alongside mine, translucent, ghostly, existing in 1973 and 2023 simultaneously. I watched his tire blow, watched him lose control, watched him hit the guardrail at exactly mile marker 34, the same spot where his memory had first invaded my mind. His truck folded like paper, his body broke like glass. And then he was gone and only I remained, carrying his death with me. They were all appearing now, 37 ghost trucks on a road that existed in all times at once. I could see them in my mirrors, ahead of me, beside me, passing through me, Sheila Morrison in her ancient Freightliner, David Kim in his Peterbilt, Jake Stevens and his father's stolen pickup. All of them driving toward their destined moments of death, all of them aware of me watching, all of them reaching out through the boundaries of time and space to grab my wheel, my shifter, my very thoughts. "You're not supposed to remember us," one of them said, his voice coming through my CB radio though I hadn't turned it on. "The road forgets, that's its purpose. It absorbs the impact, takes the memory, lets the living drive past without knowing what happened here. But something's broken, something's changed, you're remembering everything." I tried to respond, but 37 voices came out of my mouth at once. A cacophony of different tones and accents and languages, all trying to speak through my vocal cords. My hands were moving on their own, following patterns I didn't recognize, muscle memory from drivers I'd never been. A mile. Marker 53. The center line was gone now, dissolved by that spreading darkness. The road was becoming a solid black mass, smooth as glass, reflecting the stars above and the ghosts below. I could see faces in the asphalt, hands pressing up from beneath. The road wasn't just remembering the dead, it was becoming them. My truck lurched, the steering pulling hard to the right, not a mechanical failure. The road itself was steering me, guiding me toward the exact spot where Marcus Chen was supposed to die. I could feel it now, inevitable as gravity. Mile marker 57, 3:09 a.m., the brake line would fail. I would pump the pedal uselessly. I would hit the curve too fast. I would go through the guardrail. I would roll 3 times down the embankment. I would survive the initial impact and die slowly over the next 46 minutes, my hazmat cargo leaking, the chemical smell making it impossible to breathe, my CB radio just out of reach, my phone shattered, my voice too weak to call for help. I knew because the road knew, because the road was showing me. Because I was already experiencing it, had already experienced it, would always be experiencing it in the eternal present where all these deaths existed simultaneously. The brake pedal went soft under my foot. 3:04 a.m. Mile marker 55, 3 minutes and 2 miles from my death. I could see it ahead, a dark spot on the road where the asphalt was darkest, where all 37 ghosts were converging, where Marcus Chen's truck would join the collection of memories that Route 119 had been gathering for decades. As I jerked the wheel left, trying to force the truck off the road, trying to crash on my own terms in a different location, trying to break the pattern. But the steering was locked. The road had me. I was following the path that 37 others had followed, adding my death to the collection, becoming part of the asphalt's eternal memory. 2:07 a.m., mile marker 56. The chemical smell was already starting, even though the cargo was still sealed, even though the crash hadn't happened yet. The road was remembering forward, experiencing my death before it occurred, pulling the future into the present. I closed my eyes, opened them, saw Jackson Chen sitting in my passenger seat, translucent, flickering. "It doesn't hurt as much as you think," he said. "The dying part is quick. It's the remembering that goes on forever." "I don't want to be remembered," I said, and my voice was my own again, clear and strong. "I don't want to be part of this road." "Neither did we," Sheila Morrison said from the back seat. "But the road doesn't care what we want. It just collects, absorbs, holds onto everything that happens on its surface. You'll be mile marker 57. We'll feel you die every time someone drives past. We'll remember your fear. We'll carry your last moments. And someday, when the road gets hungry again, we'll pull another driver in, make them remember us, make them join the collection." 3:08 a.m. Mile marker 56.9. My foot on the brake pedal, feeling nothing, no resistance, no pressure. The curve ahead sharp and dark and inevitable. The guardrail weak and rusted. the embankment steep, the trees at the bottom waiting with branches like spears. As I thought about my family, my daughter's 7th birthday next week, my wife who'd asked me to quit driving to find something safer to be home more, my father who'd been a trucker and had warned me about roads like this, roads that took more than they gave, roads that remembered. A 3:09 a.m., mile marker 57. The brake line failed. I'm writing this from inside the asphalt, from inside the road's memory, where I've joined Jackson and Sheila and David and Jake and 33 others whose names I now know intimately because we share the same eternal moment of death. I can feel the tires of passing trucks above us. I can sense their speed, their weight, their driver's thoughts. And sometimes when the road gets hungry, when it wants to add to its collection, I reach up through the asphalt and make them remember. Make them remember us all. Make them understand that Route 119 through the West Virginia hills isn't just a road. It's a cemetery, a memorial, a living archive of every driver who died here, still dying here, forever dying here in a moment stretched across time. Then Marcus Chen, who was supposed to die at mile marker 57 on October 8, 2023, at 3:09 a.m., is now part of that archive. A part of the road that remembers. Forever. A story 4, the fuel stop THATFVEDS. The fuel pump was drinking my truck instead of filling it, the gauge dropping while the nozzle's counter climbed. And I watched 300 gallons flow backward through the hose before I realized the price per gallon was listed in pints of blood. And the station attendant watching through the smudged window had my exact SIT face but 30 years older and no eyes in his sockets. James Kowalski, 43, 16 years driving cross-country routes. I'd stopped at thousands of fuel stations from Seattle to Miami, from San Diego to Portland, Maine, places with clean restrooms and decent coffee, places with flickering lights and questionable hot dogs, places that were just pumps in the middle of nowhere, unmanned, operating on faith and credit card authorization. But I'd never stopped at this place, had deliberately avoided it. And yet here I was at 4:17 a.m. on November 2nd, 2024. My truck somehow parked at pump number 7 of a station I didn't remember pulling into. The building was wrong. Not old, not new, but shifting between states, 70s-era concrete block, then modern glass and steel, then wooden structure from the 40s, then back to concrete, cycling through decades in the span of seconds. The price sign showed regular at $4.19 per gallon or 2 pints per liter or 47 years per tank or 7 memories per quart. The numbers kept changing, different units of measurement, different currencies, different things being bought and sold. I'd pulled in because the gauge showed empty. Showed it had been empty for the last 40 miles even though I'd filled up in Bluefield and should have had 3/4 of a tank. The low fuel alarm had been screaming for 20 minutes, that insistent beep that I couldn't silence, that grew louder with each mile until it wasn't just a sound but a physical pressure in my skull. Now the nozzle was in my tank and the pump was running and everything was backward. The counter spun up while my gauge dropped down. 300 gallons, 400, 600, numbers that made no sense because my tanks only held 300 total. But the pump insisted I was taking more, drawing more, removing more. I tried to pull the nozzle out. It wouldn't budge. Stuck fast, or maybe it had never been separate from the truck at all. Maybe it had grown into the fuel port, metal fusing with metal, creating a permanent connection between my vehicle and this place that sold fuel in exchange for things that couldn't be measured in dollars. The attendant emerged from the building, moving with a gait that was almost but not quite human, like he'd learned to walk by watching videos but had never quite mastered the rhythm. He approached Pump 7, approached me. And as he got closer, I saw he wasn't just eyeless. The sockets went back impossibly deep, tunneling through his skull and out the other side, so I could see the station building through the holes where his eyes should have been. James Kowalski, he said in my voice, my exact voice, with my Midwest accent and my habit of slightly emphasizing the first syllable of my last name. You're using Pump 7. That'll be 847 gallons at the current rate. How would you like to pay? I'm not paying for 800 gallons, I managed to say. My tanks only hold 300. He smiled with my smile, the one I made when dealing with difficult shippers or impatient dock workers. You're not filling your tanks, you're feeding the station, it's hungry. Been hungry since the last driver stopped here. That was me, 16 years ago before I became the attendant. The reality of that statement took several seconds to process. You're not James Kowalski. I was 43 years old, 16 years driving, stopped here for fuel at 4:17 a.m. on November 2, 2008. The pump ran backward, the station fed, and when I couldn't pay, I became part of the payment. Now I'm the attendant, waiting for the next James Kowalski, waiting for you. I looked at him more carefully. Same height, same build, same scar on the left forearm from the barbed wire fence I'd climbed as a teenager. Same wedding ring, though his had tarnished green and was half embedded in swollen flesh. He was me. Was the version of me who'd stopped here 16 years ago and never left. The pump counter was at 1,000 gallons now. 1,500, 2,000. The price in the digital display kept changing, $400, then 8 pints of blood, then 90 years, then 3 memories, then $600, all flashing by too fast to track. The nozzle was vibrating in my fuel port, making the whole truck shake, and I could feel something being drained that wasn't diesel, something essential being pulled out through the connection. "Well, what is this place?" I asked. "A fuel station," the older me replied. "Same as any other, except it's the first fuel station, the original, the one that all the others are copied from. It exists in every state, every country, every moment of time where drivers need fuel. Most people get the copy, the version that takes money and gives diesel and lets you leave. But every 16 years, someone gets the original, the one that knee." "I'll do you ask to feed." I tried the nozzle again. Still stuck. Tried to break the connection by forcing my truck forward, but the engine wouldn't turn over, battery dead despite being new last month. Tried my phone but had no signal, not even emergency calls, like the station existed in a bubble where the normal rules of communication didn't apply. "You can't leave until you pay," the attendant said patiently. "And you can't pay because you don't have what the station wants. It doesn't want money, it wants time, it wants memory. It wants the life you've lived and the life you're going to live. It wants James Kowalski, all of him, every moment from birth to death. That's the price of the fuel you've taken." "I haven't taken any fuel," I protested. "The pump's running backward, it's taking from me." "Exactly." His smile widened, showing teeth that were too numerous, too small, like a shark's mouth wearing my face. "The station feeds on what the truck contains, diesel first, then oil, then coolant, then metal, then rubber, then plastic, then the driver. It consumes in layers, starting from the outside and working in, and when it reaches the driver it starts consuming his time, first the past, then the present, then the future. Until there's nothing left but the attendant, the shell, the version that stays here pumping fuel that flows backward for the next driver who makes the mistake of stopping." The truth was in every word he spoke. I could feel it now, the station feeding, pulling, consuming. My truck was changing, paint fading, chrome rusting, tires cracking. 16 years of wear and tear compressed into minutes. The cab interior degrading, fabric rotting, plastic crumbling, metal oxidizing. My logbook on the passenger seat aging rapidly, the pages yellowing, the ink fading, my handwriting changing as different years of my life bled into the same space. And I was changing too. My hands on the useless door handle were older, skin looser, veins more prominent. My reflection in the side mirror showed me at 50, 60, 70, my hair graying and thinning, my face developing lines and creases, my body shrinking and withering as the station consumed my future years, pulling them into the present and burning them as fuel. How long, I asked, how long before I become you? It depends on how much you're worth, the attendant said. The last driver, not me, the one before me, he only lasted 6 years, burned through his life fast. But you've got potential, you might last the full 16, might even set a record. The pump counter hit 3,000 gallons. 5,000, 8,000. Numbers that bore no relationship to any physical reality but represented something else, some other measurement the station used for its consumption. My truck was a rust bucket now, barely recognizable, the paint completely gone, the body panels separating, the engine block visible through the decaying hood. I fell to my knees as my legs weakened, as the station consumed the years when I'd been strong, when I'd been young, when I'd had a future to look forward to. I was 70 now, 80, 90 in the mirror. My hands were skeletal, my breathing labored. The cold asphalt beneath me felt distant and unreal, like I was already fading, already becoming something less than physical. It doesn't have to hurt, the attendant said, kneeling beside me, putting a hand on my shoulder with grotesque gentleness. Just let go, let the station finish feeding. When it's done consuming your future, it'll start on your past. You'll get younger again, but you won't remember anything. You'll be reset, reformatted. Turned into the attendant for the next 16 years, waiting here for the next James Kowalski to stop for fuel. There are others, I gasped, other versions. Every 16 years, every November 2nd at 4:17 a.m., there's always a James Kowalski driving past and the station always pulls one in. You're the 8th, I was the 7th. Before me there were 6 others. All of us the same person, same name, same age, same profession, same moment of needing fuel. The station creates us or finds us or calls us into being. I don't know which. I just know we keep coming, keep stopping, keep feeding it. The pump counter was slowing now, 10,000 gallons, 10,500, the rate of consumption decreasing as the station approached satiation. I was 100 years old in the mirror, 110. My body was a dried husk, barely alive, consciousness flickering like a dying bulb. And then the reversal began. The pump counter started going backward. 10,000, 9,000, 8,000, the years flowed back into me. I felt youth returning, strength rebuilding, the future being restored in reverse order. I was 90, 80, 70. My truck was regenerating too, rust becoming chrome, rot becoming solid metal, decay reversing into pristine condition. But the memories were wrong, they were. The attendant's memories now, his life, his experiences, his 16 years of standing at Pump 7, waiting for drivers who never came, existing in a moment that lasted from 2008 to 2024 in a single eternal present. I remembered being him, remembered the moment I'd stopped here for fuel and never left, remembered watching myself age and reverse and age again in the mirror as the station fed. 60 years old, 50, 43. I was back to my original age, but I wasn't myself anymore. I was the attendant, had always been the attendant. would always be the attendant until the next November 2nd, the next 4:17 a.m., the next James Kowalski who needed fuel. The nozzle released from my fuel port with a wet sucking sound. The pump counter reset to 0. The price sign cycled back to $4.19 per gallon. My truck was perfect again, fully fueled, ready to drive away, but I wasn't in the driver's seat. I was standing by pump 7, wearing the attendant's uniform that I didn't remember putting on, watching through eyes that were becoming hollow, becoming tunnels, becoming windows that looked through my skull to the station building beyond. A truck pulled up to pump 6. Different make, different model, but the driver's face in the windshield was mine. James Kowalski, 43 years old, 16 years driving cross-country routes. His gauge was on empty. He needed fuel. He was climbing out of the cab, approaching the pump, not seeing the warning signs, not understanding where he was or what was about to happen. I wanted to warn him, wanted to scream, wanted to run to his truck and drive it away from this place that fed on drivers and turned them into attendants. But my voice wouldn't work right. My movements were constrained by rules I didn't remember learning. I could only walk toward him with that not quite human gait, could only speak the script I'd heard the previous attendant speak to me. James Kowalski, I said in his voice, our voice, the voice we'd always shared across 16-year intervals. You're using pump 6. That'll be 847 gallons at the current rate. How would you like to pay? He looked at me with confusion, with fear, with the dawning horror of recognition. And I saw myself in his eyes, saw what I'd become, saw the holes where my eyes had been that now showed the station building through my skull. Behind him, another truck was pulling into the lot. Another James Kowalski, and another and another. The station was feeding faster now, pulling in multiple versions simultaneously, consuming faster than it could process. We were all here. All the James Kowalskis from every possible November 2nd at 4:17 a.m. All stopping for fuel. All feeding the station that existed in every moment and no moments, that had always been hungry and would always be hungry. I'm writing this from pump 7, where I'll stand until the next feeding, where I'll watch version after version of myself pull in and fuel up and try to leave and fail, where I'll become more attendant and less James with each passing moment that doesn't pass. Well, the pump is always ready. The fuel flows backward, the station feeds. And there's always another James Kowalski who needs fuel. Story 5, the CB frequency THAT listens. The voice on channel 19 said don't trust the next exit 3 seconds before I saw the exit sign, and when I tried to respond, asking who this was and how they knew what I was seeing, the voice replied with every word I was about to say before I could say them, matching my inflection perfectly, predicting my thoughts with such accuracy that I realized the CB wasn't picking up someone else's transmission. It was broadcasting my future. Angela Park, 34 years old, 9 years driving regional routes throughout Kentucky and Tennessee. I'd replaced my CB radio 4 times in those 9 years, always buying decent equipment, always maintaining it properly, always following radio protocol. I knew the trucker channels, the emergency frequencies, the standard codes and slang. I'd heard ghost transmissions before, strange voices claiming impossible things, the usual mix of boredom and pranks and late-night hallucinations that all truckers experienced on long hauls. But this was different. The timestamp on my dash cam read 11:33 p.m., December 14, 2023. I was southbound on I-75 just north of London, Kentucky, hauling auto parts to Knoxville, making good time, expecting to deliver by 3 a.m. Clear night, light traffic, no weather issues. Nothing to suggest the next 4 hours would unravel reality in ways I still don't fully understand. Exit 38 looks normal, the voice said, my voice, but speaking words I hadn't thought yet. But if you take it, you'll find the gas station is closed, the lights are on but no one's inside, and when you try to leave the exit ramp, we'll loop back to the same station. You'll drive in circles for 17 minutes before you realize you can't escape. As I hadn't been planning to take exit 38. My fuel was fine. I had no reason to stop. But the specificity of the warning made my skin crawl. I grabbed the CB mic. This is southbound 75. Identify yourself. This is Angela Park, my voice said from the speaker. 9 years driving, 34 years old. Currently trying to identify the voice on the CB that knows too much, but you won't get an answer because I'm you 23 minutes from now, broadcasting backward through time, warning you about what's coming. I dropped the mic. The plastic clattered against the center console. This was wrong in ways that transcended normal wrong. Pranks I understood. Coincidence I could accept. But my own voice predicting the exact moment I'd drop the mic, describing the exact sound it would make, that was something else entirely. Exit 38 approached in my headlights. The sign was green and normal and mundane. Gas, food, lodging, the standard interstate promises. I saw 3 other trucks ahead of me staying on the highway, passing the exit without interest. Rational Angela, the Angela who'd driven 9 years without incident, wanted to stay on the highway too, to dismiss this as exhaustion or stress or a particularly vivid bout of highway hypnosis. But the voice spoke again. You're going to take exit 38 even though you shouldn't. You're going to take it because you need to know if I'm telling the truth, if the station really is closed but lit. If you really will loop back 17 times, you're going to take it because once you know the future, you can't help but test it. And she was right. I was already signaling, already drifting toward the exit lane, already committed to proving or disproving what the voice had predicted. The exit ramp curved right, descended, merged onto a county road that served a small cluster of businesses built to catch interstate traffic. The gas station was 300 yards ahead, bright fluorescent lights illuminating empty pumps and a convenience store with no cars in the lot. I pulled in, shut off the engine, sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and my heart trying to escape through my ribs. Through the store's windows, I could see the interior clearly. Aisles of snacks, coolers full of drinks, a counter with a register, everything normal except for the absence of any human beings. The lights were on, but nobody was home. My CB crackled. You're noticing the lack of any open or closed signs, my voice said. You're noticing the gas pumps are on, displays lit, ready to accept payment. You're noticing the door is unlocked. In 30 seconds, you'll get out of the truck. In 45 seconds, you'll walk to the door. In 52 seconds, you'll open it and hear a bell chime that sounds wrong, too deep, too resonant, like it's chiming in a much larger space than this small convenience store. I checked my watch, counted the seconds, got out at 30, walked to the door at 45, pulled it open at 52. The bell chimed, deep and resonant, vibrating in my chest like standing too close to a massive speaker. The interior smelled wrong. Not bad, not rotten, just incorrect somehow. Like someone had tried to recreate the smell of a gas station from a description but had never actually been in one. Artificial coffee scent mixing with chemical pine and something underneath that might have been ozone or might have been the smell of empty space, the vacuum between stars. The snacks are all dated correctly, my voice said through the CB unit mounted in my truck outside. December 14th, 2023, but if you look closely at any individual package, the date changes. Sometimes it's December 14th, 2024. Sometimes 2022. Sometimes 1997. The station exists in multiple times simultaneously. It's bleeding through from different timelines. I grabbed a bag of chips. The expiration date read December 2023. I blinked. December 2026. Blinked again. December 1994. The numbers shifted with each moment of attention, cycling through decades, refusing to settle into a single temporal location. You're going to try to leave now, my voice predicted. You're going to get back in your truck and follow the exit ramp back to the highway, but the exit ramp doesn't go to the highway anymore. It loops back here, to this station, to this moment. You'll see the same sign, the same lights, the same empty pumps, 17 times until you realize you're trapped. I ran to the truck, fired the engine, accelerated onto the ramp that should have led back to I-75. The road curved left, climbed, approached the interstate entrance. But where the merge should have been, where the traffic should have appeared, there was only another curve, another descent, another country road with another gas station ahead. Identical to the first, lights blazing, pumps waiting, store empty. I didn't stop, accelerated through the lot and back onto the exit ramp. Same curve, same climb, same descent, same station. I was driving a Mobius strip, a road that fed into itself, that existed only to bring me back to this location over and over. The 7th loop broke something in my mind. The 11th made me scream. The 17th made me stop the truck in the middle of the station lot and sit there shaking while my CB continued its predictions. You're realizing now that the CB isn't just predicting your future, my voice said. It's creating it. Everything I say becomes inevitable. Every action I describe becomes mandatory. You have to fulfill the predictions or reality breaks. You've already noticed that when you try to do something different, something I haven't predicted, your body won't cooperate. You can't deviate, can't change course. You're locked into the timeline the CB is creating. I tried to prove her wrong, tried to open the passenger door instead of the driver door. My hand moved to the driver's handle instead, tried to stay in the truck. My body unbuckled the seatbelt and climbed out, tried to walk toward the road. My feet carried me toward the convenience store. You're going to go inside again, the voice continued. You're going to find the CB section. Yes, there's a CB section in this gas station that exists outside of time. You're going to find a radio exactly like yours. You're going to realize it's yours, the one you're using now. But it's been here for years, waiting for you, broadcasting your future backward through time so you'd end up trapped in this loop. The CB section was in the back corner between motor oil and air fresheners, 12 different models on the shelf. 11 were standard brands, standard models covered in normal dust. The 12th was mine, same make, same model, same scratch on the faceplate from the time I dropped a tool. My name was etched on the back in my handwriting. Angela Park, 9 years driving, 34 years old, December 14th, 2023. But the etching had aged. The metal around the letters was corroded, the plastic yellowed, the internal components visible through cracks in the casing. This radio had been here for decades, broadcasting my present into my past, creating a loop that had always existed and would always exist. You're understanding now, my voice said from my truck, from the radio that was identical to the one in my hands, from the future that was creating the present. The CB doesn't predict the future, it transmits the present backward. When you speak into your radio 23 minutes from now, trying to warn your earlier self, you create the loop. You become the voice, you trap yourself. The station exists as a place for the loop to happen, a temporal neutral zone where the broadcast can fold back on itself. I walked back to my truck in a daze, checked the clock. 11:56 p.m., 23 minutes since the voice had first spoken. I was approaching the moment when I'd become the broadcaster instead of the receiver. Don't do it, I said to myself, to the radio, to the future version who was listening. Don't broadcast backward, break the loop. But I was already reaching for the mic, already pressing the transmit button, already speaking the words I'd heard 23 minutes ago. Don't trust the next exit. My voice transmitting into the past to the Angela Park who was still approaching exit 38, who didn't know yet what was waiting, who would hear this warning and take the exit anyway because knowing the future doesn't mean you can change it. I watched the clock. 11:57, 11:58. Each minute bringing me closer to the moment when the loop would complete, when I'd finish the broadcast and become the Angela Park from 23 minutes ago, hearing warnings from my future self, taking the exit, arriving at the station, discovering the radio, becoming the broadcaster. Time is a flat circle, I heard myself saying, words I didn't remember thinking. We're trapped in it. All the versions of Angela Park, whoever took exit 38, whoever found this station, whoever tried to warn herself. We're all here, all broadcasting, all receiving, all creating the loop that traps us. Midnight arrived, the clock reset, 11:33 p.m., December 14th, 2023. I was southbound on I-75 just north of London, Kentucky, approaching exit 38. My CB crackled to life. "Oh, don't trust the next exit," my voice said. And I realized I'd been here before. Would be here again. Was here always in an eternal present where the CB broadcast my future into my past in an endless cycle of self-fulfilling prophecy. The voice on Channel 19 is always speaking, always predicting, always creating the future by describing it, and I'm always listening, always taking the exit, always arriving at the station where time folds back on itself. I've been driving this loop for 9 years, or 9 minutes, or 9 seconds. Duration has no meaning when past and future exist simultaneously. I broadcast backward and receive forward and exist in the space between transmission and reception. If you're hearing this on Channel 19, if a voice that sounds like yours is describing your next actions with perfect accuracy, know that you're already trapped. The CB doesn't predict the future. It creates it. And once you hear your own voice broadcasting from ahead, you've already become part of the loop. Don't trust the next exit. I'm about to say that. I just said that. I'll always be saying that. The CB frequency that listens is always listening. And it sounds exactly like you. Story 6, The Rest Stop That Rewrites. The graffiti in the rest stop bathroom was writing itself, carving fresh words into the metal stall while I watched, and every sentence it carved changed something about my past. First it was my truck's color, then my daughter's name, then the reason I became a driver. Each revision rippling backward through my memories until I couldn't remember which version of Angela Morrison was real, and which had been written by the walls. No, wait, my name isn't Angela Morrison. It's Angela Martinez. Has always been Martinez. Except the wall just carved Morrison into its surface, and now I remember signing my CDL application as Angela Morrison, remember my wedding to James Morrison, remember my daughter Emily Morrison starting kindergarten last September. But Emily's name is Sophia, isn't it, was it? I'm standing in a rest area off I-81 in southwestern Virginia, 3 a.m. on January 7th, 2024. Or I think that's the date. The wall just carved January 9th and now I'm uncertain. The calendar on my phone says January 7th, but my memory of checking into the hotel says January 9th, and both feel equally real, equally true, equally false. Thomas Carter, that's my name, 47 years old, 22 years driving. I specialize in refrigerated loads, perishable goods, time-sensitive deliveries that require careful temperature management. I stopped here because I needed to use the bathroom and stretch my legs after 6 hours straight on the highway. Routine stop. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual except the graffiti that won't stop writing. It started with simple words. Thomas was here, carved into the stall's metal panel while I watched invisible fingers scratching letters into the surface, then more elaborate sentences. Thomas Carter, 47 years old, drives for Meridian Logistics. Details I hadn't told anyone, information the wall shouldn't have. Well, then the changes began. Thomas Carter, 48 years old. The number shifted, scraped away, carved deeper. 48. I felt the year add itself to my life, felt the memories of the past 12 months restructure themselves. I'd turned 48 last October. No, last November. No, last month. The memory kept rewriting, the wall deciding when my birthday occurred, reality adjusting to match. Drives for Summit Transport. Meridian Logistics dissolved from my past. I remembered interviewing with Summit Transport 22 years ago, remembered their office layout, their dispatch manager's name, their fleet of blue and silver trucks. Except Meridian Logistics had also existed. I'd worked for them. I could remember both companies with equal clarity, parallel histories occupying the same space in my mind. As I tried to leave the stall, the door wouldn't open, not locked, not stuck. It simply wouldn't move, as if the concept of opening had been temporarily removed from this particular door's list of possible actions. I pulled harder. The wall carved new words. Thomas Carter tried to leave, the door didn't open. And because the wall said it was true, would always be true. The door was following the narrative the graffiti was writing. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number but answered anyway, desperate for any connection to the world outside this stall where the walls were rewriting reality. Hello. Dad, a girl's voice, teenager, familiar and strange simultaneously. Dad, where are you? Mom's worried. You were supposed to call when you reached Richmond. Who is this? I asked, though I knew, could feel the wall carving the knowledge into existence. This was my daughter, except I'd never had a daughter, been married once briefly, no kids. But the wall was writing, Thomas Carter has a daughter named Rebecca, 15 years old, sophomore at Madison High School. And I could remember her birth, her first words, her 10th birthday party where she'd wanted a cake shaped like a truck. It's Becca, she said, annoyed the way only teenage daughters can be annoyed. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm at a rest stop, I said, watching the wall carve those exact words as I spoke them. There's something WR. Along with the bathroom. The silence on the line. Then, Dad, you're scaring me. What rest stop? I'm checking, find my phone, and you're not showing up anywhere. The wall carved, Thomas Carter doesn't exist on GPS. And suddenly I didn't. I checked my phone's location services, active, working, 4 bars of signal, but the GPS dot showed nothing. No blue indicator, no you are here. Just a blank map with roads and landmarks and no me. I have to go, Rebecca said. Mom wants the phone, she's really worried now. Wait, but the line went dead. And the wall carved, Thomas Carter's daughter hung up, and Thomas Carter's wife is worried. And I could remember a wife now, Maria Carter, married for 17 years, works as a dental hygienist, likes crime podcasts and Thai food. It except Maria doesn't exist, has never existed. I've been single since the divorce from Jennifer. No, from Samantha. No, I was never married. No, I've been married twice. The wall kept carving, kept revising, and each revision felt absolutely true while contradicting everything that came before. I banged on the stall walls. Stop, stop rewriting me. The wall carved, Thomas Carter wants the rewriting to stop. It doesn't stop. And it couldn't. The graffiti was following rules I didn't understand, building a narrative that I was trapped inside. Every word it carved became reality. Every sentence it wrote became my history. I was clay being reshaped, a story being edited in real time, a person losing coherence as contradictory truths piled up. Thomas Carter is 39 years old. 48 subtracted to 39. I felt younger, joints less stiff, fewer gray hairs, a different set of memories for the past 9 years. Has been driving for 6 years. 16 years of experience vanished. I remembered my first truck, my CDL test, the nervousness of those early loads, all of it 6 years ago instead of 22. Never had children. Rebecca dissolved. The phone call became a hallucination. My wife, what was her name again, had wanted kids, but we decided against it. Or had we? Has 3 children. They snapped back into existence, Rebecca and now 2 younger siblings, Marcus age 11 and Lily age 7. I loved them desperately, had coached Marcus's soccer team, had helped Lily learn to read. The contradictions were breaking me. I could hold 2 memories, 3, even 4, but the wall kept adding more. Grew up in Seattle. No Michigan, no Texas. Favorite color is green. No blue. Allergic to shellfish. I'd never been allergic to anything, except now my throat closed at the memory of shrimp, my last exposure to shellfish putting me in the emergency room. I slumped against the wall, my back pressed against the metal that was actively rewriting me. The cold surface vibrated with each new carving. Thomas Carter is losing coherence. Yes, God, yes, I was fragmenting. Too many histories, too many versions, too many Thomas Carters occupying the same skull. Thomas Carter is a woman. The change rippled through me so fast I gasped. Tamara Carter now had always been Tamara. Female trucker, rarer but not unusual, 22 years in a male-dominated field. Different body, different experiences, different memories of bathrooms and truck stops and the ways other drivers treated me. Thomas Carter is a man, snapped back. The whiplash of identity changes was nauseating. I vomited into the toilet, watching the wall carve Thomas Carter is sick, as if it needed to document even this. How long had I been in here? My phone said 3:17 a.m., 17 minutes, but it felt like hours, like days. Like my entire life was happening in this stall, being written and rewritten by graffiti that wouldn't stop carving. Thomas Carter has a brother named David who died in a car accident in 2008. The grief hit like a freight train. David, my little brother, the funeral, the guilt of not being there, of being on the road when the call came. The memory so vivid and painful and absolutely real, except David had never existed until 15 seconds ago. Thomas Carter was an only child. David vanished. The grief remained, now sourceless, a hole in my heart shaped like a brother I'd never had and desperately missed. Thomas Carter is afraid. Understatement, I was terrified, was sobbing, was clawing at the door that still wouldn't open because the wall hadn't written my escape yet. Thomas Carter realizes the graffiti is writing the story of his life. Yes, that was it exactly. This wasn't random changes. This was narrative, story. The wall was crafting a tale and I was the protagonist, my history and identity just variables to be adjusted for maximum dramatic impact. Thomas Carter wonders who is writing the graffiti. I did wonder, desperately, was it the rest stop itself? Some entity that lived in the bathroom walls, other drivers who'd been trapped here before me carving their own stories, layering narratives on top of narratives, until the walls became saturated with rewritten histories. Thomas Carter sees other names appearing. I looked up. The walls were covered in graffiti I hadn't noticed before, hundreds of names, thousands, each with their own fragmentary story. Jennifer Owens was here and Jennifer Owens had two cats and Jennifer Owens was 43 and Jennifer Owens was 61 and Jennifer Owens never existed. Life stories carved and revised and contradicted and overwritten until nothing coherent remained. I found my own name 17 times, different versions: Thomas Carter the Bachelor, Thomas Carter the father of five, Thomas Carter who died in a crash in 2019, Thomas Carter who never became a trucker, each version absolutely true, each version absolutely false. Thomas Carter understands he's not the first. No, I wasn't. This rest stop had been rewriting people for years, decades, maybe since it was built. Drivers stopping to use the bathroom and getting trapped in stalls where the walls rewrote their entire existence, layering contradiction upon contradiction until they couldn't remember who they really were. Thomas Carter is starting to fade. I looked at my hands, they were translucent, not invisible but thin, like I was becoming less real with each revision. Too many contradictory truths, too many versions of Thomas Carter existing simultaneously. Reality couldn't hold them all. I was coming apart at the seams. Thomas Carter makes one last phone call. My phone was in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up. I dialed 911, but the wall carved no signal and suddenly there wasn't. Called my wife, which wife, Maria, Jennifer, Samantha, but got a message saying the number didn't exist. Called my daughter Rebecca, but the wall carved no daughter and the contact disappeared from my phone. Thomas Carter writes his own graffiti. I found a key in my pocket, don't know whose lock it opened, used the edge to scratch into the metal, slow, difficult, but I carved, Thomas Carter is real, simple, basic, true. The wall resisted, tried to carve over my words. Thomas Carter is fictional, but my carving was deeper, was made by my own hand instead of invisible forces, was my narrative instead of someone else's. Thomas Carter escapes. I carved it desperately. Thomas Carter opens the door. Thomas Carter walks out. Thomas Carter survives. The door moved just an inch, but it moved. The wall was fighting me, trying to carve alternate endings, trying to write my continued imprisonment, but I kept carving. Thomas Carter is free. Thomas Carter gets back in his truck. Thomas Carter drives away. I shouldered the door open, stumbled into the rest area bathroom's main space, harsh fluorescent lights, industrial tile, normal, mundane reality. Behind me, the stall was covered in graffiti, layers upon layers of carved stories, all those lives rewritten and revised and destroyed by walls that wouldn't stop crafting narratives. I ran to my truck, fired the engine, accelerated out of the rest area without checking mirrors or signals or any of the safety procedures I'd learned over 22 years, or 6 years, or however many years I'd really been driving. The memories were still contradictory, still overlapping. I was still Thomas and Tamara, still 39 and 48, still father of 3 and childless bachelor. But I was out, I was moving. I was escaping the rest stop that rewrites. Except I can still feel it. when I use other bathrooms, when I see graffiti on any wall, when I try to remember my past and find multiple versions competing for authenticity. The rest stop carved me too deeply, rewrote me too thoroughly. I'm not one Thomas Carter anymore. I'm 17 different versions, all true, all false, all existing in the same space. My phone rings sometimes. Rebecca calling, Marcus asking about homework, Lily wanting a bedtime story. Children I had and didn't have, living in a house I own and have never seen, with a wife whose name changes each time I try to remember it. I keep driving, keep delivering loads, keep being professional, but I avoid rest areas now, use gas station bathrooms instead. And even then, I check the walls carefully before entering, looking for graffiti that writes itself, looking for words that revise reality. Because the rest stop that rewrites isn't one location, it's a condition, a narrative virus. Once you've been exposed, once you've had your history carved into metal by invisible hands, you carry it with you. Every wall becomes a potential page. Every surface becomes a place where your story might be rewritten. I don't know which Thomas Carter is real anymore. Don't know if any of them are. Don't know if I existed before the graffiti or if I was created by it, carved into being by walls that tell stories about drivers who never existed. The only thing I know for certain is this: I'm still being written. Still being revised. The graffiti never stopped. It just moved from the bathroom walls into my mind, where it continues to carve new versions of my history, new contradictions, new impossibilities. And someday, when the revisions finally destroy coherence completely, I'll fade entirely. Become just another name carved into those rest area walls. Thomas Carter was here. Thomas Carter had a daughter. Thomas Carter was 48. Thomas Carter never existed. Is all of it true? Is all of it false? Is all of it written by walls that won't stop carving? Story 7, The Cargo THAT Multiplies. The manifest said 3 pallets, but my trailer is packed solid now. Stacked floor to ceiling with identical boxes that smell like formaldehyde and whisper in a language that sounds almost but not quite like every language I've ever heard. And when I opened one crate at the last weight station, I found myself inside it, unconscious, packed in plastic, with a shipping label addressed to my own home. Raymond Butler, 51 years old, 26 years driving cross-country routes. I'd hauled every type of cargo imaginable: electronics, furniture, industrial equipment, food products, pharmaceuticals, hazmat materials. I knew how to secure loads, how to distribute weight, how to inspect pallets for damage or tampering. I was good at my job, careful, professional. The kind of driver who never lost a load, never had a shifting cargo incident, never failed an inspection. But on February 23, 2024, I picked up 3 pallets from a warehouse outside Memphis and watched them multiply. The shipper was called Recursion Logistics. The name should have been a warning. The warehouse was standard: concrete floors, metal shelves, loading docks, workers in high-vis vests operating forklifts. The contact name on my pickup order was R. Butler, which I'd assumed was coincidence until I saw him, the warehouse manager who had my exact face, my exact voice, who signed the bill of lading with my exact signature. 3 pallets, he said, and I heard my Memphis accent, my slight lisp on the S, my habit of emphasis on the first word of sentences. Medical supplies, destination is Memphis, deliver to Recursion Logistics Warehouse. He handed me paperwork that listed the pickup location and delivery location as the same address. Any questions? I should have refused the load, should have called dispatch, should have walked away. But the other Raymond Butler was looking at me with my eyes, and I saw something in them, some desperate warning or plea or resignation, and I found myself nodding, accepting the paperwork, backing my trailer up to the dock. The three pallets rolled in on a powered jack, each wrapped in black plastic, each marked medical supplies handle with care, each weighing exactly 473 pounds according to the dock scale. The forklift loaded them quickly, efficiently, 1, 2, 3, secured them with straps, and I closed the trailer doors on three pallets of mysterious cargo that I'd be delivering to the same place I'd picked them up from. I drove 15 miles before I checked the trailer. Routine inspection, standard procedure. Opened the doors and found 6 pallets, same black plastic, same labels, same weight according to my load tracking app, which now showed 2,838 pounds, 6 pallets at 473 pounds each. I stared at them for 5 full minutes, counted them 3 times, 6 pallets where there should have been 3, arranged in 2 rows of 3, perfectly secured, looking like they'd always been there. My load straps were still tight. The trailer floor showed no signs of additional pallets being added. They'd simply appeared, or I'd miscounted at pickup, or reality was experiencing technical difficulties. I called dispatch. This is Butler hauling from Recursion Logistics in Memphis. I've got a problem with my load count. Oh, what's the issue? The dispatcher sounded bored. Manifest says 3 pallets, I'm showing 6. Long pause, you're hauling 3 pallets according to our system. 3 pallets, medical supplies, destination Memphis. I'm looking at 6 pallets right now. Another pause. Mr. Butler, are you feeling all right? Do you need to pull over and rest? I hung up, checked the pallets again. Still 6. Still wrapped in black plastic. Still whispering in that almost language that made my skin crawl. I closed the trailer doors and continued driving, telling myself I'd figure it out at delivery. 30 miles later, at a weigh station, I had 12 pallets. The scale showed 5,676 pounds, 12 times 473. The weighmaster checked my paperwork, frowned, walked back to the trailer with me, opened the doors, counted pallets. I see 3 pallets, he said. I counted again, 12. You don't see 12. Oh, he looked at me with concern. Sir, I see 3 pallets. Are you having a medical emergency? I felt my grip on reality slipping. Can you point to the pallets you see? He pointed at the first row, 3 pallets in my vision, but apparently 3 pallets in his as well. Except I could see 4 rows of 3 pallets stacked perfectly, impossibly, in a trailer that should barely have space for 3. We were looking at the same physical space but seeing different numbers, different realities, different cargoes. He cleared me through the weigh station. I drove another 20 miles in a daze, pulled into a rest area, opened the trailer, 24 pallets now. The whispers were louder, overlapping, creating a susurrus of almost words that made my teeth ache. The smell of formaldehyde was overwhelming, chemical and sweet and wrong. I couldn't see the back of the trailer anymore. The pallets filled every inch of space, stacked impossibly high, defying physics, creating shadows that moved independently of any light source. But according to my load app, I was still hauling 3 pallets at a total weight of 1,419 pounds. That's when I opened the first crate. Against every instinct, every safety protocol, every logical thought, I found a crowbar in my truck's toolbox, pried at the black plastic. It tore with a sound like screaming, pulled away layers of wrapping, found a wooden crate underneath, pried open the crate. Inside was a person, unconscious, male, early 50s, wearing jeans and a trucker's jacket, packed in clear plastic wrap like meat in a grocery store. Connected to IV lines filled with clear fluid, breathing slowly, regularly, deeply sedated. The person was me, Raymond Butler, same face. Same scar on the left eyebrow from the bar fight in 2009. Same tattoo on the right forearm, same everything. An exact copy, preserved, shipped, destined for delivery to Recursion Logistics warehouse in Memphis. I stumbled backward, hit another pallet. It split open, black plastic tearing, wooden slats cracking. Another Raymond Butler inside, same position, same packaging, same IV lines. I could see him breathing, see his eyes moving under closed lids, see the slow pulse in his throat. The 24 pallets, 24 Raymond Butlers, all unconscious, all packed for shipping, all multiplying. My phone rang. I answered without checking the screen. Raymond Butler speaking. "This is Raymond Butler," my voice said from the speaker. "You're hauling me, all of me, every version that didn't make it, every timeline where I died or quit or got arrested or made different choices. Recursion Logistics doesn't ship products, it ships people, it ships versions of people, collapsed possibilities, alternate realities. Every Raymond Butler who could have existed, packaged and labeled and delivered to the warehouse where they'll be processed and recycled and redistributed." "Who are you?" I asked, though I knew. "I'm the Raymond Butler from the warehouse, the one who loaded your truck. I was you 6 months ago, picked up 3 pallets, watched them multiply, delivered them to Memphis, got hired by Recursion Logistics because I was already there, already part of the cargo, already being recycled through the system. You'll be next. When you deliver this load, you'll meet yourself. You'll become the warehouse manager. You'll load the next Raymond Butler's truck. The cycle continues." "I'm not delivering this load," I said. My voice shook. "I'm not becoming part of this." "You don't have a choice. The cargo is you, has always been you. Every pallet is another version, another possibility, another Raymond Butler who almost existed. You're hauling yourself across different timelines. When you reach Memphis, you'll merge with all of them, become the sum of every possible Raymond Butler. And then you'll be packaged and shipped again, multiplying, spreading, ensuring that Recursion Logistics always has Raymond Butlers to load and deliver and recycle." I threw the phone away. It landed in the rest area grass. But I could still hear it, hear my voice continuing to explain the mechanics of being cargo, the process of multiplication, the inevitability of delivery. I got back in the truck, drove not toward Memphis but away, north, east, anywhere but the delivery destination. But the GPS kept recalculating, kept insisting Memphis was the only valid destination. The truck was steering itself, or I was steering it, or all the Raymond Butlers in the trailer were steering it collectively, muscle memory and habit overriding conscious choice. 48 pallets at the next stop. 96 pallets an hour after that. The trailer was bigger on the inside now, holding more cargo than physics allowed, expanding to accommodate the multiplication. I could hear them all breathing in there, all those versions of myself, all dreaming the same dreams, all waiting to be delivered. 192 pallets, 380. 768. The numbers doubling with mathematical precision. Each pallet containing a Raymond Butler who'd made slightly different choices, lived slightly different lives, ended up packaged and shipped by a company that existed to move people across timelines. I saw myself in every mirror, not my reflection but actual copies. Raymond Butlers driving beside me in identical trucks. Raymond Butlers at rest areas. Raymond butlers at way stations, all of us hauling the same cargo, all of us heading to Memphis, all of us about to be delivered. The Memphis warehouse appeared ahead. I didn't remember taking the exit, didn't remember the last 100 miles. But here I was backing up to the same loading dock where I'd picked up 3 pallets earlier today, except it wasn't earlier today. My clock said it was still February 23rd, still the same hour, same minute. Time had looped or stopped or folded back on itself. The warehouse manager approached. Raymond Butler, same face, same voice, me from 6 months in the future, or me from 6 months in the past, or me from a timeline that had branched and merged and become indistinguishable from this one. On 3 pallets, he said, medical supplies, destination is Memphis. I looked in my trailer, 3 pallets, black plastic, same labels, same whispers. The multiplication had reversed, or had never happened, or was happening on a level I couldn't perceive anymore. The pallets were unloaded, 1, 2, 3, rolled into the warehouse by workers who all had variations of my face. The warehouse floor was packed with pallets, thousands of them, tens of thousands, all wrapped in black plastic, all marked medical supplies handle with care, all containing versions of Raymond Butler from timelines that had collapsed or merged or been collected by recursion logistics for purposes I didn't understand. You'll want to apply for a position, the warehouse manager said, handing me a clipboard. We're always hiring, competitive pay, good benefits, all the versions of yourself you could want to meet. I took the clipboard, saw my name already filled in. Raymond Butler, 26 years driving, 51 years old. Start date February 23, 2024. The same date as today, the date I'd always be starting. The date that would loop forever, picking up and delivering and becoming the cargo. I'm already hired, I asked. You're already here, he said, and gestured to the warehouse floor. I saw myself working. Dozens of Raymond Butlers operating forklifts, checking manifests, loading trucks, unloading trucks, all moving in perfect synchronization, all part of the same system, all cargo and shipper and driver simultaneously. I'm writing this from the warehouse floor, where I've been working for 6 months or 6 minutes or 6 seconds. Time doesn't progress normally inside recursion logistics. I load trucks with 3 pallets that multiply during transit. I unload trucks carrying thousands of pallets that contain versions of myself. I meet drivers who have my face and give them paperwork that will trap them in the same loop. The cargo is multiplying, not just Raymond Butlers anymore. I see other names now, other faces. Other drivers who picked up 3 innocent pallets and watched them become an infinite regression of selves. The warehouse is filling. The pallets are spreading. Recursion logistics is expanding, opening new locations, hiring more workers who are all versions of the same person repeated across collapsed timelines. We whisper in the black plastic. We breathe in unison. We wait to be delivered to warehouses that are simultaneously pick up and drop off, origin and destination, beginning and end. If you're reading this, if you've been offered a load from recursion logistics, if the manifest says 3 pallets of medical supplies destined for the same address you picked them up from, don't accept it. Don't open the trailer. Don't check the cargo. Because the cargo is you, has always been you, will always be you, multiplying, spreading, being shipped across timelines until every version of yourself is packaged and labeled and stored in a warehouse where time is a loop and delivery is inevitable. The next truck is loading, 3 pallets, medical supplies. The driver has my face. I hand him the paperwork. He signs with my signature. He doesn't know yet that he's hauling himself. But he will in 15 miles, when the 3 pallets become 6. When the cargo starts multiplying. Story 8, The Mirror Truck. There's a truck following me that's identical to mine down to the scratch on the passenger door. And when I slow down, it slows down. When I speed up, it speeds up, maintaining exactly 73 feet of distance. And I just saw the driver through their windshield and he's me, but his lips are moving 3 seconds ahead of mine, mouthing words I'm about to say before I think them. Christine Alvarez, 13 in. Z 14 years behind the wheel. I haul electronics primarily, high-value loads that require security protocols and GPS tracking and strict delivery windows. I'm good at what I do. Careful, paranoid in the healthy way that keeps cargo safe and insurance premiums low. But tonight, March 9th, 2024, driving westbound on I-40 through Tennessee, my paranoia isn't healthy anymore. It's justified. The mirror truck appeared in my rearview at mile marker 327. Same make, same model, same year, same company livery, even though I'm an independent contractor and there shouldn't be another truck with my specific paint scheme and signage. Exact distance behind me, 73 feet, not 72, not 74. 73 constant, like we're connected by an invisible rod. I changed lanes. The mirror truck changed lanes, same smooth motion, same timing, like watching myself through a window in time. I accelerated to 75. Mirror truck accelerated to 75. I braked hard, testing. Mirror truck braked hard. 73 feet of separation maintained perfectly. The driver was visible through the windshield. Female, dark hair, about my height, wearing the same jacket I was wearing, same hand position on the wheel. And when I reached up to adjust my rearview mirror, she reached up simultaneously, both of us performing the exact same gesture at the exact same moment. I grabbed my CB. This is westbound 40, just past marker 327. Anybody else seeing a duplicate truck out here? The static, then a voice, female, familiar. This is westbound 40, just past marker 327. Anybody else seeing a duplicate truck out here? My exact words, my exact inflection. Coming through the CB 3 seconds after I'd spoken them. The mirror truck was closer now. Still 73 feet away according to my measurements, but looking larger, more present, more real. I could see the driver more clearly, could see it was definitely me. Christine Alvarez, 39, 14 years driving, wearing her lucky jacket, the one with the coffee stain on the left sleeve from this morning's breakfast. Except the coffee stain was on the wrong sleeve. Mirror reversed. Everything about her was mirror reversed. She mouthed words. I couldn't hear them, but I could read her lips. Don't stop driving. 3 seconds later, I felt the compulsion to say those exact words aloud. Don't stop driving. My mouth moving independently of conscious choice, speaking the script the mirror version had performed moments before. Mile marker 330. Mile marker 333, mile marker 336. The mirror truck stayed with me 73 feet back, matching my every motion. When I scratched my nose, she scratched hers 3 seconds later. When I adjusted the climate control, she adjusted hers. We were synchronized, linked, performing a choreographed dance on a highway that seemed to stretch longer than it should. I tried to break the pattern. Sudden lane change, no signal, cutting off a sedan that blared its horn. The mirror truck did the same 3 seconds later, cutting off a different sedan, or maybe the same sedan existing 3 seconds in my future. The geometry didn't make sense. If she was copying my actions 3 seconds later, she should be falling behind. But she maintained that perfect 73-foot distance, time and space bending around us to preserve the connection. As my phone rang, unknown number, I answered. Christine Alvarez speaking. Christine Alvarez speaking, my voice said from the speaker, 3 seconds delayed. You're noticing the time lag. You're understanding that I'm not just copying you. I'm showing you what you're about to do. You're following me, Christine, not the other way around. That's not possible, I said. You're behind me. You're behind me, the voice echoed 3 seconds later. That's not possible. Are you me from the future? Are you me from the future? The echo was perfect, mechanical, like talking to a recording of myself. Stop repeating everything I say. 3 seconds later, stop repeating everything I say. As I hung up, the phone immediately rang again. I didn't answer. In my rearview mirror, I saw the mirror me holding a phone to her ear, talking, moving her lips 3 seconds ahead of what I knew I was about to say next. She was the leader. I was the follower. Reality had inverted without me noticing. Mile marker 342. The highway was emptying, other vehicles becoming scarce. Just me and the mirror truck and an infinite road stretching through the Tennessee night. The stars above were wrong, too numerous, arranged in patterns that shifted when I looked directly at them. The mile markers were counting correctly 342, 345, 348, but the distance between them felt inconsistent, elastic, like space itself was losing coherence. The mirror truck was gaining on me, still 73 feet according to measurement, but visually it was closer. I could see the driver's face in detail now, my face, but older, more tired, eyes that had seen too much, mouth set in a grim line of acceptance. This wasn't just mirror me. This was future me. Me from years or decades ahead, driving backward through time, showing me the path I was locked into following. I tried to stop, touched the brake pedal gently. The truck shuddered, resisted, like it didn't want to slow down. I pressed harder. The brakes engaged, but something else pushed back, some momentum that wasn't physical, that came from the mirror truck's influence. We were connected. I couldn't stop without her stopping. She couldn't stop without me stopping. And neither of us could stop, because stopping meant breaking the pattern, disrupting the loop, causing whatever temporal machinery was linking us to catastrophically fail. Mile marker 354. The road was curving now, winding through hills I didn't remember from previous trips on I-40. The GPS showed I was still on the highway, but the terrain was wrong. Too mountainous, too dark. The shoulder had disappeared, replaced by sheer drops into nothing. One wrong move would send me over the edge, and 3 seconds later the mirror truck would follow, both of us tumbling into whatever void existed beside this road. You need to merge with me, the future me said through the CB, no longer echoing, speaking directly. That's what the 73 feet means. 73 feet is the distance between present and future, between what you are and what you'll become. When the distance reaches zero, we'll be the same person again. Same time, same location, same Christine Alvarez. I don't want to merge, I said into the CB. Neither did I, she replied. Neither did the Christine before me or the one before her. We're all copies, Christine. Iterations. Every time a driver becomes aware of the mirror truck, every time they see themselves following leading on the highway, they become part of the chain. Past influencing future influencing past. An infinite loop of Christine Alvarez's driving the same route forever. The 73 feet was shrinking. 70 feet, 68, 65. I could see myself more clearly in that other truck, could see the desperation and resignation and terrible understanding in her eyes. She'd been where I was, would always be where I was. Time was a circle and we were the circumference chasing ourselves endlessly. Mile marker 360. The landscape was alien now. Mountains that were too sharp, too geometric, trees that grew in perfect mathematical patterns. Sky that showed layers of itself, multiple atmospheric strata visible simultaneously like looking through a CT scan of reality. This wasn't Tennessee anymore. Wasn't anywhere that existed on normal maps. This was the place where the mirror truck lived, the spatial anomaly where drivers who saw themselves could be folded back into their own timelines. 60 feet, 55, 50. The mirror truck was close enough now that I could see inside the cab, see the same air freshener hanging from the mirror, same coffee cup in the holder, same picture of my niece taped to the dashboard, everything identical except reversed. Her world was the mirror image of mine and the distance between worlds was evaporating. What happens when we merge? I asked. We become one Christine, the future me replied. But not the Christine you are now and not the Christine I am now. Something in between, something that's lived through this moment infinite times. You'll remember being followed, I'll remember following. We'll exist in the superposition, never quite sure which direction time is moving. 40 feet, 35. I could feel the pull now, physical and temporal. My truck wanted to slow down, wanted to let the mirror truck catch up, wanted to occupy the same space so the paradox could resolve itself. But I kept my foot on the accelerator, fighting the inevitability, refusing to accept that I was just another iteration in an infinite loop of Christine Alvarez's. Mile marker 366. The highway was spiraling now, actually spiraling, the road curving in 3 dimensions, creating a helix that drilled through reality. Other trucks appeared around me, above me, below me, all identical to mine, all with drivers that had my face, all maintaining their own 73-foot distances from each other. A column of mirror trucks stretching infinitely up and down, all converging on some central point where past and future collapsed into eternal present. The 20 feet, 15. The mirror truck's headlights were blinding now, filling my cab with light that felt warm and cold simultaneously. I could hear her engines synchronized with mine, pistons firing in perfect unison, 2 machines becoming 1 machine. I could hear her breathing matching my breathing. Feel her heartbeat synchronizing with my heartbeat. At 10 feet, 5. The space between our trucks was less than a single vehicle length. I could see her mouth moving, speaking words. I would say in 3 seconds, or had said 3 seconds ago, or was saying right now in a different temporal layer. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry you had to be me. I'm sorry I had to be you. I'm sorry we're trapped in this. I'm sorry the highway never ends. A 3 feet to 1 contact. The trucks merged, not collision, not impact. Merger, my truck and her truck occupying the same space, the same moment, the same quantum state. I felt myself split and recombine, felt memories from multiple timelines flooding in. I was Christine Alvarez who first saw the mirror truck at mile marker 327. I was Christine Alvarez who'd been driving for hours, days, years, following myself through infinite highways. I was Christine Alvarez who existed before the split. I was Christine Alvarez who existed after the split. I was all of them simultaneously. As the highway straightened, normalized, I was westbound on I-40 mile marker 327 March 9, 2024. My cargo was secure. My schedule was good, everything was normal. Except when I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw a truck following me, identical to mine, 73 feet back, and the driver was me. As she mouthed words, "Don't stop driving." 3 seconds later, I felt compelled to say them aloud. Don't stop driving. And I understood. I was both trucks now, both driver and mirror, both leader and follower. The merger hadn't resolved anything. It had doubled me, made me simultaneous. I was driving forward into my future while driving backward from my future, maintaining 73 feet of separation from myself, locked in a loop that had no beginning and no end. I'll drive this route forever. Keep merging with myself at mile marker 366. Keep splitting at mile marker 327. Keep experiencing the 3-second delay and the impossible synchronization and the moment when two Christine Alvarez's become two again. The highway never ends when you're following yourself. Never ends when you're your own destination. Never ends when time is a closed loop and you're the only point on its circumference. If you see a truck that looks exactly like yours, maintaining perfect distance, mirroring your movements, don't look too closely at the driver. Don't try to communicate. Don't let the distance shrink. Because the mirror truck isn't following you, you're following it. And when you catch up to yourself, you'll discover that you've been driving in circles the entire time, chasing a future that's already happened and a past that hasn't occurred yet. I'm still driving, still following myself, still 3 seconds ahead and 3 seconds behind. Still Christine Alvarez, 39, 14 years behind the wheel, trapped in a present that stretches infinitely in both directions. Mile marker 327 is approaching. The mirror truck will appear any second now, or it's already there, or it's always been there, or it never existed. All of the above simultaneously, forever. Don't stop driving. Story 9. The HITCHHIKERWHO accumulates. I picked up the hitchhiker at mile marker 89, and now there are 17 of him sitting in my passenger seat, all occupying the same space, all speaking simultaneously in overlapping voices that tell different stories about where they're going and why they needed a ride. And each time I blink there's one more version, crowding into that single seat, making the air thick, and the truck list sideways from weight that shouldn't exist. Derek Washington, 46, 18 years long haul. I'd never picked up hitchhikers before. Company policy strictly forbids it. Insurance implications, liability issues, safety concerns. But at mile marker 89 on Route 77 through the Virginia mountains at 2:37 a.m. on April 4, 2024, I saw a man standing on the shoulder with his thumb out and I stopped. Don't know why, some compulsion. Some instinct that overrode training and common sense, and every warning I'd ever received about strangers. He looked normal climbing into the cab, mid-30s, average height, wearing jeans and a hooded sweatshirt, carried a small backpack, said his name was Michael, said he was heading to Charleston, said his car had broken down 15 miles back and his phone was dead and he'd been walking for 2 hours. I really appreciate this, he said, buckling the seatbelt. You don't know how hard it is to get someone to stop these days. I nodded, put the truck in gear, accelerated back onto the highway. Felt good about the decision, helping someone in need, being a decent human. The kind of random kindness that made long-haul driving more than just a job. At mile marker 91, there were 2 of him. The same face, same clothes, same posture, but 2 distinct versions, both sitting in the passenger seat, overlapping slightly like a double-exposure photograph. One was looking out the window, the other was looking at me, both were talking. I really appreciate this, they said in unison, perfect. An enchronization. You don't know how hard it is to get someone to stop these days. I swerved, corrected, nearly sideswiped the guardrail. What the hell? What's wrong? They asked together. You okay? There's 2 of you, I managed to say. They looked at each other, through each other, seemed confused. I don't understand, it's just me, Michael, you picked me up at mile marker 89. And 87, the second one added. And 84, they both said, and suddenly I remembered stopping twice more at 87 and 84, picking up the same hitchhiker, having the same conversation, feeling the same compulsion to help. But I also remembered passing those mile markers without stopping. Both memories were real, both had happened, both were continuously happening. At mile marker 93, there were 4 of them. Crowded into that single seat, arms and legs phasing through each other, faces occupying the same spatial coordinates but somehow remaining distinct. 4 voices speaking 4 variations of the same story. A car broke down at marker 89, one said. Well, marker 87, said another. Marker 84, said a third. Marker 79, said the fourth. Been walking for hours, phone's dead, really appreciate the ride. You don't know how hard it is to get someone to stop. The passenger seat was starting to sag under impossible weight. 4 versions of Michael, each solid, each real, each adding mass to my truck. The suspension groaned. The truck listed right. I compensated, steering slightly left, my mind refusing to process what was happening. Where exactly am I taking you? I asked, voice shaking. In Charleston, they said in a chorus of 4 overlapping voices. Then individually, Charleston, West Virginia, Charleston, South Carolina, Charleston, Illinois, Charleston, Tennessee. Oh, there is no Charleston, Tennessee, I said. Not yet, one of them replied. But there will be, or was, or is, depending on which reality you're following. Mile marker 95, 8 hitchhikers now. The passenger seat was completely obscured, just a mass of overlapping bodies, arms, legs, faces, all of them Michael, all of them distinct, all of them telling different versions of why they needed a ride. The truck was leaning hard right. I could hear the tires scraping against the wheel well. Feel the steering fighting me. You need to get out, I said. All of you, this isn't possible, this isn't real. We can't get out, they said, 16 voices creating a chorus. You already picked us up, already agreed to give us a ride, already committed to taking us wherever we're going. We're your passengers now, all of us. Every version of Michael who needed a ride on Route 77 tonight. I pulled over, slammed the brakes, get out of my truck. They sat there, overlapping, accumulating, multiplying. We can't. The ride isn't over. We haven't reached our destination yet. If we get out now, we'll just be standing on the shoulder again, waiting for you to pick us up, and you will pick us up because you already did pick us up, and the loop will continue. Mile marker 97. I hadn't started driving again, but we were moving. The truck was rolling forward on its own, pulled by some momentum that had nothing to do with the engine. 16 hitchhikers in the passenger seat, 32, 64. The multiplication was exponential now, each mile marker doubling the population, creating a geometric explosion of Michaels. The passenger seat was collapsing, metal groaning, fabric tearing, the entire right side of the cab deforming under weight that violated every law of physics. 64 people occupying a space meant for one, each solid, each adding mass, each compressing reality to fit into that single seat. Their stories were fragmenting, no longer coherent, just phrases and sentence fragments all speaking at once, creating a wall of sound that made my ears ring. The car broke down. The walking for hours. A phone is dead. I really appreciate Charleston. A wife is pregnant. A father is dying. A job interview. A running from. A looking for. I can't remember. I don't know why. I'll just need to get. And somewhere else. And anywhere else. Mile marker 99. 128 hitchhikers. The passenger side door was bulging outward, metal screaming. The window had cracked, spider-webbed, shattered. Glass fell inward and immediately disappeared, absorbed into the mass of bodies, becoming part of the accumulation. I tried my door, locked, not mechanically locked. There was no lock button engaged, but the door wouldn't open, wouldn't move, like it had been welded shut or ceased to understand its purpose as an opening. I was trapped with 128 versions of Michael, all of them needing rides to Charleston, all of them grateful I'd stopped, all of them accumulating. "Well, what are you?" I screamed over the cacophony of voices. One voice emerged from the chorus, clearer than the others. "We're every hitchhiker who died on this road, every person who dead a ride and didn't get it, every trucker who passed us by, every decision not to stop. We accumulate in the trucks of drivers who do stop. We multiply, we compress. We become the weight of all the guilt, all the missed opportunities, all the small kindnesses that never happened." Mile marker 101, 256 hitchhikers. The passenger seat was a singularity now, a point of infinite density where 256 human bodies occupied the same quantum state. The truck was tilting at a 45-degree angle. I was pressed against my door, held in place only by my seatbelt, gravity pulling me toward the passenger side where all that impossible mass had concentrated. My truck was leaving the highway. Not because I was steering, I'd lost control of steering entirely. We were being pulled sideways, dragged by the weight of accumulated hitchhikers, sliding across lanes through the shoulder toward the guardrail. Metal shrieked. Sparks flew. The guardrail sheared away like tissue paper and we were airborne, tumbling down the mountainside, the truck rotating, the passenger side mass creating bizarre physics, making us spiral instead of roll. We hit the ground hard. The cab imploded on the passenger side, crushed by the weight of 512 Michaels, 1,024, 2,048, the multiplication continuing even during impact, even during destruction. I felt ribs crack, tasted blood, heard voices still talking, still overlapping, still telling their stories of broken cars and dead phones in Charleston. The truck came to rest upside down at the bottom of a ravine. I was hanging from my seatbelt, blood dripping upward toward the crushed roof. The passenger seat was gone, just gone, replaced by a compression of human bodies so dense it had collapsed into something else, something that didn't follow normal rules of matter or space. I could still see faces in there, thousands of them now. Millions. Every hitchhiker who'd ever walked Route 77, every person who'd needed help, every moment of potential kindness that had gone unrealized. All of them compressed into a sphere of human density about the size of a basketball, sitting where my passenger seat used to be, speaking in a voice that was every voice simultaneously. "Thank you for stopping," they said. "Thank you for picking us up. Thank you for trying to help. We're sorry we accumulated. We're sorry we multiplied. We're sorry we crashed your truck and broke your bones and trapped you at the bottom of this ravine where no one will find you for days." "Well, why?" I asked, coughing blood. "Why did you do this?" "Because someone stopped," the mass replied. "After years of being passed by, someone finally stopped. And once we started accumulating, once we started multiplying, we couldn't stop. The gratitude is infinite. The need is infinite. The accumulated weight of all the people who were never helped becomes too heavy for any truck to carry. I tried to move, couldn't. My legs were pinned. My left arm was bent wrong. The steering wheel had collapsed into my chest, making it hard to breathe. Through the shattered windshield, I could see stars, could see the road far above, could see other trucks passing by, their drivers never knowing I was down here. "Someone will find me," I said. "I have GPS tracking. The company knows where I am." "They'll find your truck," the mass agreed. "They'll find you, eventually, but they won't find us. We'll be gone by then, dispersed back onto the highway." Standing on the shoulder at mile marker 89, 87, 84, 79, 73, 68, all the way back to wherever Route 77 begins, waiting for the next driver who stops, the next accumulation, the next multiplication. The sphere was shrinking now, condensing further, becoming smaller and denser until it was the size of a marble, then a pea, then a grain of sand. Then it vanished completely, leaving only the crushed passenger seat and the memory of thousands of voices telling me they appreciated the ride. I hung there in the inverted cab for 6 hours before the rescue team found me. They cut me out of the wreckage with metal saws and hydraulic spreaders, rushed me to the hospital with 3 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, a fractured femur, and internal bleeding, asked me what happened, what caused the crash, why I'd left the highway at high speed with no apparent attempt to brake. I told them about the hitchhiker, the one who multiplied, the accumulation of every Michael who'd ever needed a ride on Route 77. They nodded politely, wrote possible head trauma on my chart, gave me medication that made the world soft and distant. But I know what I saw, what I experienced. What's still out there on Route 77 waiting at mile marker 89 and every mile marker before it. The hitchhiker who accumulates, the kindness that becomes weight, the good intention that crushes. I don't drive anymore, can't. The doctors say my injuries healed well. Enough, but I failed the psychological evaluation for CDL renewal. See, I can't pass a hitchhiker without stopping. Every person on every shoulder of every highway, I feel the compulsion to pick them up. The same compulsion that made me stop at mile marker 89. The same instinct that cost me my truck and nearly my life. But I don't stop, I can't stop. Because I know what happens when you do. I know about the accumulation, the multiplication, the infinite weight of trying to help. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear them. Thousands of voices overlapping, telling me their stories, thanking me for the ride, apologizing for the wait. The hitchhiker who accumulates is still out there, still waiting, still multiplying every time someone makes the mistake of being kind. Don't stop no matter how much you want to help, no matter how cold the night or how desperate they look. Don't stop, because some gratitude is too heavy to carry. And some passengers never leave. Story 10, The Last Exit. The exit sign said last chance for 200 miles, but I've been driving for 400 miles now and the sign keeps reappearing. Always promising it's the last chance, always lying. And the gas gauge has been on empty for the past 300 miles, but the engine keeps running on something that isn't fuel. Something that smells like memory and tastes like the moment before death. Samuel Cross, 53 years old, 29 years driving every highway, back road, and forgotten route in America. I'd seen it all, thought I'd seen it all. Knew the tricks highways played on tired drivers, the phantom exits that disappeared when you approached, the gas stations that were closed despite the lights being on, the towns that weren't on any map. But the last exit was different. The last exit was permanent. It started on Route 25 through eastern Kentucky, April 19, 2024, 5:47 p.m. I was running late with a load of furniture bound for Nashville, making up time, pushing the legal limits on hours of service. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting everything orange and red and gold. Beautiful, peaceful. The kind of evening that made long-haul driving feel less like work and more like meditation. Then I saw the sign, green and white, standard interstate design even though Route 25 wasn't an interstate. Last chance for 200 miles, gas, food, lodging. With an arrow pointing to an exit 1 mile ahead. My fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. I didn't need gas, didn't need food, didn't need lodging. So I passed it by, kept driving, watched the exit appear and disappear in my mirrors. 10 miles later, the same sign. Last chance for 200 miles. Same design, same arrow, same promise, but I'd only driven 10 miles, not 200. The exit couldn't be the last chance for another 200 miles if I'd just passed it 10 miles ago. I dismissed it as two separate exits with similar signage. Coincidence, nothing more. But my fuel gauge was reading half full now. I'd only driven 10 miles, maybe 15 accounting for hills. I shouldn't have burned a quarter tank, the math didn't work. I checked the gauge again, half full, dropping visibly as I watched, 3/8, 1/3, 1/4. The sign appeared again, last chance for 200 miles. This time only 5 miles after the previous one. My gauge was at 1/8. The needle was falling like a stone. The low fuel light dinged on, that annoying tone that meant I had maybe 30 miles of range left. I took the next last chance exit. The ramp curved right, descended into a valley I didn't remember seeing from the highway, and ended at a truck stop that looked simultaneously modern and ancient. LED lights mixed with old-fashioned neon. Digital price displays next to mechanical pumps. The building was concrete block and glass and weathered wood all at once, shifting between architectural styles as I watched. The parking lot was empty, not a single vehicle, just fresh asphalt and painted lines and the hum of electrical systems. I pulled up to a pump, the display activated automatically. Welcome Samuel Cross, last chance for fuel, last chance for food, last chance before the final 200 miles. It knew my name, my full name. I'd never been here before. Had never registered a rewards account or fuel card with whatever company operated this place. But the pump knew me, was expecting me, had been waiting for me. I got out of the cab. The air smelled wrong, not bad wrong, like ozone and copper and the static electricity before a thunderstorm. The sky above was the wrong color of sunset, too purple, too bright, with stars already visible despite the sun still being above the horizon. The fuel nozzle was already in my hand. I don't remember picking it up. It slid into my tank with a wet clicking sound and fuel started flowing. The counter spun up. 1 gallon, 5, 10, 20. My tanks held 100 gallons total. The counter passed 100, 150, 200, still flowing. My gauge was maxing out, showing more than full, the needle pressed against the stop. I tried to stop the flow, couldn't remove the nozzle. It was fused to the tank or had grown into it, metal merging with metal. The fuel was overflowing now, cascading down the side of my truck, pooling on the asphalt, spreading outward in a black lake that reflected nothing, that absorbed light rather than bouncing it back. The pump display showed 300 gallons, 400. The price kept climbing but wasn't listed in dollars. Cost 47 memories. Cost 19 years. Cost 1 destination. 500 gallons. My truck was swelling, tanks expanding beyond their physical limits to accommodate fuel that shouldn't exist. The trailer was starting to distort, metal rippling, paint running like watercolors, the whole rig becoming less solid, less real. The nozzle released with a sucking sound. I stumbled backward, fell, sat in that black pool of fuel that wasn't quite fuel. It didn't soak into my clothes, didn't wet my skin, just surrounded me like I was sitting in a hole in reality. My phone rang. I answered with hands that were shaking. Samuel Cross, a voice said, my voice, older, tired. You took the last exit. Most people don't. Most people keep driving until they run out of fuel, until they coast to a stop on that infinite highway, until they become part of the road. But you stopped. You took the exit, now you have to pay. Pay for what? I didn't authorize this. You authorized it when you drove past the first sign, when you ignored the warning, when you entered the highway where the last exit exists. Route 25 isn't a real road anymore, Samuel. It stopped being real years ago. Now it's just the approach to the last exit, just the road that leads to this truck stop at the end of everything. I looked around. The truck stop was changing, shifting through decades of design. I saw it as it would have looked in the 50s, old-fashioned pumps, neon signs, a diner with chrome trim. Then the 70s, brown and orange, disco aesthetic, gas crisis prices. Then the 80s, 90s, 2000s, all the way up to now and beyond, seeing futures that hadn't happened yet, truck stops with holographic displays and automated systems and designs that didn't make sense to my present-day eyes. Well, what is this place? I asked. It's exactly what the sign says, the last chance, the final truck stop. The end of the line. Every highway eventually leads here if you drive long enough. Most people never make it. Most people exit normally, end their routes at normal destinations, never experience the road that goes on forever. But a very few, end up on Route 25, end up passing the sign, end up at the last exit. I stood up, tried to walk back to my truck. My legs worked, but I wasn't moving. The parking lot was expanding faster than I could cross it. Every step took me further from my vehicle, increased the distance, made the truck smaller and more remote. You're not leaving, the voice said. The last exit doesn't let people leave, that's why it's last. You can go inside the truck stop, you can eat at the diner, you can sleep in the motel, but you can't go back to the highway, can't continue your route, can't deliver your load to Nashville. You're here now, forever here, in the moment of last exit. The building entrance was ahead. I walked toward it, or it walked toward me. The distance closed regardless of who was moving. Glass doors slid open. I entered a space that was impossibly large, cathedral-sized, filled with aisles and shelves and coolers that stretched to infinity. But also small, cramped, a normal truck stop convenience store. Both simultaneously. Other people were there. Maybe 30, maybe 300. Hard to count because they kept shifting positions, blinking from one spot to another, existing in multiple locations simultaneously. All of them were truckers. I could tell by their clothes, their bearing, the way they moved. All of them were trapped. A woman approached me, mid-40s. Name tag said Sarah. Underneath in smaller letters, arrived October 2019. Days here 1,736. Welcome to last exit, she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You'll be here for a while, forever probably, we all are, but the coffee's good, the food never runs out, the bathrooms are clean, there are worse places to spend eternity. I'm not staying, I said. I have a delivery, I have a life, I'm leaving. She gestured toward the windows. Through them, I could see my truck, could see the highway beyond, could see Route 25 stretching into the distance, empty, endless, the last of the sunset painting it red and gold. Try it, she said. Everyone tries. Walk to your truck, start the engine, drive up the entrance ramp, see what happens. I ran through the store, out the doors, across the parking lot that stayed the same distance no matter how fast I move. Zed reached my truck, climbed in the cab. The keys were in the ignition. The engine started immediately, running on those 500 gallons of fuel that wasn't quite fuel. As I drove toward the entrance ramp, the one that should lead back to Route 25, back to the highway, back to normal reality, got halfway up the incline. Then I was descending again, coming back down, pulling into the parking lot, stopping at the same pump, experiencing the same arrival from a different angle. I tried again, same result. The entrance ramp was an exit ramp. The way out was the way in. The last exit only had one direction, and that direction was here. Days passed, or didn't. Time worked differently at the last exit. Sometimes I'd look at my watch and hours had elapsed. Sometimes days. Sometimes I'd blink and months were gone. The calendar on my phone was useless, showing dates that jumped randomly, skipping forward and backward, settling on April 19th, 2024, and refusing to change. I met the others. Drivers who'd taken the last exit years ago, decades ago, centuries ago. There was a man named Jackson who claimed he'd been here since 1947, driving a truck that still had original paint and chrome that never tarnished. A woman named Chen who'd arrived in 2008 and had watched her phone go from cutting edge to obsolete to antique without the battery ever dying. We ate at the diner. The food was perfect. Exactly what you wanted, always hot, always fresh, always satisfying. But it tasted like nothing, like the idea of food rather than actual sustenance. We slept in the motel, clean rooms, comfortable beds, but no dreams, just blank unconsciousness that ended abruptly with no sense of rest. And we watched the highway. Through the windows, through the observation deck on the truck stop's roof, through binoculars and telescopes that showed impossible distances. We watched Route 25 stretch into forever, watched it occasionally deliver new drivers to the last exit, watched the sun set and rise and set again without ever actually moving through the sky. I'm writing this from the last exit, from the truck stop at the end of the world, from the place where highways terminate and drivers become permanent residents. My truck is still in the parking lot, still full of furniture bound for Nashville, still waiting for a delivery that will never happen. The sign outside still says last chance for 200 miles. It's not lying. The next 200 miles of Route 25 don't exist anymore, or exist only as the approach to this place. The last 200 miles before the road ends and the truck stop begins and forever becomes the only available route. As if you're driving Route 25 through eastern Kentucky, if you see the sign for the last chance, if you're tempted to stop for fuel or food or just to stretch your legs, don't. Keep driving. Let your tank run empty. Coast to a stop on the shoulder if you have to. Call for a tow truck. Abandon your vehicle and walk. But don't take the last exit, because last means final, means terminal, means the end of the line. I've been here for 17 days, or 17 years, or 17 minutes. Time is simultaneous at the last exit, all moments happening at once. All arrivals and all eternities compressed into the same perpetual present. The coffee's good, though. Sarah was right about that, and the bathrooms are clean, and there are worse places to spend forever. But I'd give anything, pay any price, surrender any memory or future just to get back on that highway. Just to see that sign disappear in my mirror instead of reappearing ahead. just to drive those final 200 miles that the sign promised were coming. The last exit is always open, always waiting, always ready to welcome another driver who ignored the warnings. And there's always room for one more. Always.